Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, Eye of the Needle. Yes, Voyager. Yes, it was also, we'll talk about it. It's an 80s spy film with Donald Sutherland. Speaking of things you may not know about, we have a Facebook page. It's All Been Checked Before. We're out there. That's right. If you're out there, come find us. Thread that needle. Go through the eye of the needle. Follow us on Facebook. Lots of fun out there. Now let's talk. Listen to us. Listen to us talk about Eye of the Needle on Voyager on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. Your regular Voyager hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Hey, I'm Shane.
Jimmy-Jerome. No sign of Keith as of this moment, but we are here to talk about Eye of the Needle, and maybe he'll find his way through that Eye of the Needle. As you expected, this is an adaptation of the biblical story about how it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man.
I thought it was a remake of the Donald Sutherland 1981, I think 1981 film. Actually, a really good movie with Kate Nelligan, one of her early movies. Can't remember the director, but it's a good one. Kind of about a German spy caught behind enemy lines and on an island off the English coast, I believe. Worth checking out. Really good. Anyway, this was not that either of those Eyes of the Needle.
No, it was not.
Needles.
So what are your first impressions of Eye of the Needle?
I thought it was fine, maybe a little bit fine. I liked it. Like I said, I still like discovering these characters. That's actually been fun so far. I don't know if I loved all the stuff going on. I think, and I'm gonna jump out and say I think Shane enjoyed it. We got into some more time travel, which I thought was interesting. Once we got to the payoff, I'm always like, get to the payoff. Although to that point, I thought we got to the payoff at the right time. I didn't think I wasn't frustrated, but I did think this, and I did see this in the some of the stuff I read, and obviously some of this is already going on. But this is when you first start to feel that, oh man, kind of a false hope, like, oh, we're going home, and then they're not, and you start to really feel some of that. We're not going to find that way home, and I thought of not a great series, but one I've seen many, many, many times, Gilligan's Island, which is obviously it's an island. They're not on an island, they're moving, but still a similar thing. They're trying to get home, and this is just one of those, where, oh, we're getting out of here finally, and then they don't. But I'm sure this is the first of many. But I did feel their pain, so I appreciated that too. So
Yeah, a lot of sci-fi jargon. I think this might have been the heaviest episode for sci-fi jargon so far, which was like a lot of the words. I started writing them down. I'm like, there's too many. I'm just stop.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there was overall, I mean, roller coaster of emotions for the for the crew. So
Yeah, I think even at the time, I did not buy that this was going to be their ticket home with the transporter and everything, because I'm like, you're 6 episodes into the series. I could see them. There are certain shows that abandon their premise 6 episodes in. Cougar Town being a great example. They could have, but I think they had done so much marketing on the premise that even at the time, and this was one of the episodes I illegally, sorry FBI, recorded on VHS from the broadcast. There were, I think, 5 first season episodes. There was Caretaker, there was this, there was the one coming up where Tom Paris is accused of murder. I can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head. It was definitely not the last few we've watched, but those are the episodes I've seen over and over again because I had them recorded on VHS. So I'm very familiar, but I think even at the time, it didn't feel like they would have such an easy out so early that you could beam home. But in retrospect, looking at it now, I'm like, it would have been really cool if like one person had managed to beam home or something.
Yeah.
20 years in the past, like, ooh, somebody beamed home and then we lose them. That could be an interesting story.
Or I thought maybe they'd end up in a different weird place instead, maybe, But
as long as it wasn't some alternate universe where Chris Pine was Captain Kirk, I'd be cool with that. But yeah, I think there was good potential here. I think they could have taken a little further if they wanted to play with serialization a tiny bit, which of course they didn't. There were some things I'm going to nitpick about the science and actually about the mapology of the galaxy and how that works. But other than that, emotionally, I think it was satisfying, even if I don't think they did a great job making the science work.
Yeah, I got a couple of those thoughts too. And I left out the B plot, which is I actually enjoyed too. It's some more development for the EHM, or now we call him Doctor, right?
The Doctor or the EMH, either one's fine. if you've seen Star Trek Prodigy, have you watched season 2 yet?
No.
Oh, then you don't know what his name's going to be, so we'll just leave that for now. Yeah, we begin the episode with a scene where I don't know if you noticed, and this seemed odd to me, that the background music of the opening shot was like the theme song. So I'm like, is the theme song starting now? Like, they let it go and then it transitioned into a different piece of music, but I was like, it's too much of the theme song right off the bat, in my opinion. They found the wormhole and talked about a wormhole detour. And I do think once Tom Paris said, if this works out, we're going to name it the Harry Kim wormhole, that should have been immediately like, oh, it's not going to work out.
That actually went into my head. I wrote down, this can't last. This can't last.
I do think now the fact that it didn't work, they should, for the rest of the series, keep talking about, remember that Harry Kim wormhole? But they never did. That's why he never got promoted. But no, I don't think they ever mentioned it again.
That does feel like a Lower Decks bit.
Yes.
I wrote down, what is this, a wormhole for ants?
Well, so you say that, and that's my next note, is about how they say it's virtually microscopic, and then they say it's 30 centimeters across. So it's about a foot across. There's a big difference between microscopic and a foot. Now, I get in space, vast differences. In the terms of the universe, 30 centimeters is virtually microscopic. But I think these people have a reference of what microscopic is. So saying something that's a foot long is microscopic. I bumped against that. Though the micro probe or whatever makes sense that could fit in a foot.
Yeah.
I was fine with that.
Maybe not so micro then.
Right.
To your point.
A tiny wormhole. Not a micro wormhole, a tiny wormhole.
Yeah.
It did make me think that, and I'm surprised we haven't talked about this, and maybe we have a little bit already on DS9, but are wormholes real? And we don't know for sure yet, I guess, is what the internet is telling me. It's a hypothetical thing, but they feel confident they're out there, but they haven't been able to create one, and they haven't found one. They haven't observed one. And then I was wondering why they're called wormholes, but I haven't found that yet. But because is that what wormholes look like? I don't know if I've ever seen a wormhole. I've seen a worm in a hole, but then they're filling the hole.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point on where that term comes from. There was a wormhole in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, so I just assumed they're correct.
Right.
But if you watch Star Trek, for the most part, they treat wormholes like they're a temporary phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So, like DS9, it's amazing that we found a stable wormhole, because the motion picture, they found the wormhole, it almost immediately collapses on them.
Yeah.
This one seems like it was stable, but it's ancient and is now fading from existence.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just ancient by comparison. So they say it's like, we got maybe 48 hours left of this thing. Maybe that just means it's a week old, and that's a long time for a wormhole. I don't know. The only other wormhole I remember is in Next Generation, where the Ferengi went through the wormhole. Remember, with the Enterprise shuttle? And then the Enterprise shuttle came back and the Ferengi didn't, and the wormhole collapsed. So I think most of them, which we will see them again on an episode of Voyager, as I'm sure Shane knows. They run into the Ferengi from the Next Gen that went through the wormhole, and the wormhole collapsed. But anyway, yeah, it is what it is. We meet a crewman. I believe the crewman's name is Lieutenant Walter Baxter, played by Tom Virtue.
Yeah.
Best known for Even Stevens, where he played Steve Stevens, the father, as well as Green Book, Iron Man 3, Secret Life of the American Teenager. He was most recently in 3 episodes of Grotesquerie from Ryan Murphy.
Oh.
He's been on just about any TV show other than Seinfeld you can come up with the last 30 years.
231 credits.
Wow.
Oh,
I wrote him.
Yeah.
I wrote his name down as Lieutenant Dipwad.
Yeah.
I mean,
to
that's
keep it
fair.
friendly. Yeah. I had another name written down, and then I remembered our show rating, so I changed it.
Yeah,
I
he's
did
on
not-
90210, Ally McBeal, It's Always Sunny, Seventh Heaven, Freaks and Geeks, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, 6 Feet Under, Arrested Development, Charmed,
Dead to Me,
That's
Yeah.
everything.
911,
ER.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Yeah. We could sit here all night because it is 231 credits acting wise.
That's a different podcast all by itself right there.
We could make a podcast where we just watch his whole oeuvre. That would be, if we're looking for something to do at some point after we finish Trek, let's pick some random background actor and watch everything they've ever been in. Speaking of him, though, he is in 4 episodes of Star Trek Voyager. He will be back as Lieutenant Baxter in 1 episode of season 2, and then he plays, according to IMDb, supervisor in a 2-parter in season 7. Guessing that's probably not Lieutenant Baxter coming back in season 7, but we'll see. That is his only Trek credit. So, I mean, he was coming shortly after Freaks and Geeks back then, and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So, and he did do an episode of Firefly. Even the short-lived shows he popped up on.
There you go. And he's a jerk, but I also was like, man, am I as anti-hologram as he is? I don't think I would be that way with Robert Picardo. I don't think, or somebody who's curing me or taking care of me, I would not be. But as much as I'm anti-holodeck or holograms the rest of the time.
I guess it shows my bias so much that I didn't even consider putting him as my annoying character, even though you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking to Kess like the Doctor's not even there, and I love the Doctor, but I still didn't. It didn't bump me on anything more than this is just what it was at the beginning of Voyager before he got his. Obviously, by the end of this episode, something's changed for him, and I don't think we ever see this behavior towards him again in any real way.
I guess, I mean, if you think about it in universe, they probably, if you're on the holodeck and you're probably going to ignore all the holograms. You're going to just talk to whoever else is a real person.
Yeah.
Even about, the characters, because they're just characters. That's what they're used to. Like EMH technology is relatively new at this point in the timeline. So.
But also, I think we're pretty sure most people use the holodeck for sexual fantasies. So they were probably treating those sexual partners as objects and not people. Like you would a toy of a certain.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Paris already kind of revealed in the previous episode with the bar that that's what he uses it for. And we know Will Riker uses it for that, Barclay, So
speaking of, Kess's conversation sounded like the start of a certain kind of movie. It's like, I'd like more materials on human anatomy. Like, whoa.
I'm telling you, man, once that voice got inside my head, I'm like, all I can hear is her talking like that. Everything she says.
Is I watching the wrong Voyager? What is this?
I'm not mad about it either. It's there. And I know I'm enjoying it because I know it's not gonna last long. Which is
Voyager's not gonna last long.
But I can't say that on the Dark Clean podcast.
So I think this episode is yet another episode where Janeway is showing what a good captain she is. I say that it comes up in relation to the Doctor story later.
Yeah.
But right now I'm saying it because Kim's trying to figure out how to communicate through there, and Janeway's like, I'm just going to assume he's going to be able to do it until he proves me wrong. And I'm like, good for having faith in your people. She's just awesome as a captain. Torres reveals she never got along with her Klingon mom, so she doesn't have any family waiting at home. Yeah. I mean, other than Neelix and Kess, and it is pretty strange in this episode that Kess is like, when we get home, we're going home. Okay, Kess, calm down. You've been on the ship for 5 minutes. But other than Kess and Neelix, Torres might be the only one that's not going back to somebody, right? Probably.
Yeah.
But anyway, Janeway's flip-up console. Have we seen that before?
I don't think so.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah.
That's super
nice. I
nice.
wish Picard's was like that too. And the other, just having that flip-up console and then you put it back down when you're done. I liked that a lot.
Yeah. It's a science vessel. You got to have it.
You do. They talk about that they think that this is signal might be coming from the Alpha Quadrant. Now let's talk about the makeup of the Milky Way galaxy for a second, and we'll nitpick it some more as we go on. But the way Star Trek divides the Milky Way, it's divided into 4 quadrants: Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta. According to the official maps they use for the show, Earth is solidly in Alpha, but Vulcan is slightly over the line into Beta. And they're both halfway between the edge of the universe and the center of the universe. But those are giant quadrants. And I know Delta and Gamma are the 2 we don't explore. A lot of Betas, Romulan empires in Beta. We know the Klingons and stuff are in Alpha. And that doesn't cover the whole quadrant because, like they said, it takes decades to cross a quadrant. So just saying you got to the Alpha Quadrant, to me, first of all, it could be anywhere in the Alpha Quadrant. It could be decades from Earth. It could be as far from Earth as you are now. Why are you just Alpha Quadrant? Oh, it must be close to home. Second of all, even if they get into the Alpha Quadrant, oh my God, they said, we don't know where this Romulan is in the Alpha Quadrant. He's 70,000 light years from us. Okay, from one end of the Alpha Quadrant to the other end of the Alpha Quadrant, it's got to be at least 50,000 light years. Seriously, how do you know? I don't know. It really bothered me how fast and loose they were playing. Like the Alpha Quadrant was just this one fixed place, and that's what we're heading towards. If we get it, we're within a couple hours from home anyway. You strike it. I don't know. It bothered me a lot.
I mean, that makes sense. I guess maybe they assume that because maybe there's giant swaths of the Alpha Quadrant that there's just nothing there. So by seeing that there's an intelligent ship behind it, that they have to be at least somewhat close to civilization.
I mean, they haven't had decades to explore. I mean, Starfleet's been out for a couple hundred years, but they haven't sent a ship on a 30-year mission to drive 15 years away and fly 15 years back. So how would they even know if it's got vast swaths of uninhabited? It just doesn't make... It really bothered me. It felt like lazy writing of we're not going to stop and figure this out. Kes goes to Janeway. This is Janeway being an awesome captain. Number 2, because first of all, Janeway's first reaction isn't great, where she's just like, yeah, he's just a hologram. Whatever. Yeah. We're all... And that immediately I'm flashing to Harry Potter, and I'm like, Kes is Hermione saying these house elves need rights. And Janeway and everybody else are laughing at her going, what is your problem with the way it is? They like being considered non-entities and not caring about people caring about them. But then her wisdom of like, I'm going to look into it. And when Janeway says I'm going to look into it, for many people it would be a brush off. But for Janeway, it's like, no, I'm going to look into it. And I think already 6 episodes in, we know when Janeway says that, she means she will actually look into it. Because this is at least the 2nd or 3rd time she's done this type of thing.
Yeah.
I also thought, I'm pretty sure that passed the Bechdel test. They were talking about a man, but not in a romantic way. So, or I think even though it might have sounded like it the way Kes talks, I do not think what she was saying.
Well, yeah, and she does kiss him by the end of the episode. But yeah, I think Voyager more episodes than DS9 or Next Gen past the Bechdel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, although I did laugh when she did go talk to the doctor, which was a very nice scene, and she did just leave without asking, do you want to be turned off? You good?
I wrote that down too, because they just had that whole discussion about it, and then she just walks out.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he said I'm in the middle of doing something, but still, she could have asked.
Is that when?
Like, do you want me to come back in an hour, or send Ensign Kim down in an hour to turn you off? Like,
is that when they've decided that they're going to give him the power, or is that later?
No, they decided because he gets turned off in inopportune times and left on when he doesn't want to be left on. It makes sense that he would have his own power. I mean, everything about his plot in this episode makes total sense.
Yeah,
like that you've been treating this guy as a tool, literally, and he needs a little more agency than that if you're going to use him as your chief medical officer, which he is by default, not because you want him to, but yeah. Anyway. The Romulan, when he's talking to Janeway, does not believe that Janeway is who she says he is, or who she says she is, and that they are where they say they are. And, Romulans are skeptical. They're always conspiracy theorists, so that all made good sense. The fact that we eventually saw it was a Romulan was like, and science vessel, not cargo vessel. I'm not a big Romulan fan, but I think this is the way to use them as suspicious, but also they have, like, compassion when pressed on an individual level. Steven likes the Romulans. Did you think this was a good Romulan portrayal?
Yeah, I did. I thought, like, as you just said, him being suspicious and then him actually being able to kind of come around and be like, oh, and it's, I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I think, maybe I mentioned it last week, but kind of like Balance of Terror, finding that common ground, and they're able to, and, it's at the end when the twist or whatever you want to call it comes in that he's from 20 years ago. I like the empathy going both ways with them there, which is really cool. So yeah, I thought it was a good Romulan, as good as they can be. I mean, it's no the Romulan commander or either the Romulan commander from TOS, but then again, who is? But although I do have a soft spot for Romulan. We'll talk about that next week. Again, might not be that soft, but anyway.
So Janeway has a conversation in her pajamas with the Romulan.
I thought of your woos when that scene came up. Like, you're loving this.
I literally wrote down, this is my first fashion note, fashion in a while, but Janeway's pajamas, love them. I wonder how comfortable that is, but the material looks comfortable. And it wasn't too showy. It wasn't like a.
Well, there were pants underneath the gown.
Oh, okay. That makes them more comfortable. But she, of course, looked great, and the hair's down. And yeah,
but didn't you just keep expecting the Romulan to ask, "What are you wearing?" as they're talking?
Especially in 1995, 96. Yeah, he's on a 1-900 900 900 900 number. But so I definitely enjoyed this look, and like I said, this is me now.
Me too, for the record.
This might make me sound even more pervy, and I was just listening to one of our episodes where we talked about perv corner, but now I just sound like a guy on the internet, and he back on the internet. I just liked that she looked classy, and I'm not even saying that she looked great. It just wasn't the we talked about Martina Sirtis, having to wear even much more revealing clothing, and we didn't necessarily complain, but this is functional, and she looked, and fashion, and great fashion sense. She looked great, and it made sense for the scene, and she was undercovers, which again, I don't know, I'm obsessed with them being undercovers now.
Next gen they rarely were. It was that one shiny whatever. Yeah, DS9 is the one shiny.
Like, man, they must just be like they just turn out the heat.
I would definitely keep it cool enough for covers. That just adds.
I agree.
Comfort,
yeah, it's just
I did think in that conversation when she's in her pajamas, where he's like, "I don't know how to verify that you're you." Her thing of like, let us write personal messages and you can read all of them.
Yeah.
I get why a lot of people would feel weird about letting the stranger read their personal messages, but I don't think anybody would complain that she made this deal in the first place for this. And while there are Romulans sneaky enough to hide codes and lots of personal messages, I do think it's a pretty good way to verify, like, we're going to send you all these messages, just read them. And
just one note. I always have the Chakotay, I'm saying his name wrong. Chakotay.net, the transcript up, thanks to those guys. And the beginning of that scene parenthetically says, Janeway is asleep in her bed under the stars.
Oh.
It's kind of humorous, but not untrue. Yeah. But then when she's talking about sending the messages and all that, I saw the Beatles marathon this weekend, which will again be 6 months ago now, but and it just made me think of Eleanor Rigby. Look at all the lonely people, especially when they got into like the, and as I said at the beginning, I felt like this was the first episode where I really felt like oh man, who knows if we're ever talking to these people again. And at first I was like, well, get over it. You're on a starship. And I'm like, nope, this was the episode that kind of, and I'm sure it'll continue to get driven home, but I know they're making the best of it and they're doing what they do. They're exploring, but I felt it in this episode, and I thought that was a really positive part of this episode.
Janeway's dog's probably a puppies by now. They should have mentioned that.
Oh,
that would be the worst part, missing my cats.
I appreciated the way they got through the Romulan on a personal level, is appealing to sad dad. Like, don't you miss your kid you've never met? Well, we miss our kids and parents and stuff too. Torres has that brilliant idea to piggyback a transporter on communications. And then that got me thinking, like, if they beam the whole crew, do they set the ship for self-destruct after they beam? Like, you can't just leave Voyager floating in the Delta Quadrant, right? Except, I decided my alternate episode was they did leave Voyager floating in the Delta Quadrant a la Disco. Because we saw in that short trek that Discovery just eventually gets left floating in space. Obviously the ship's not self-aware, but they don't turn the Doctor off. And it's just the Doctor by himself on a ship floating in space. I would watch that show.
Interesting.
But that's my alternate episode. And then if you wanted to make it like Lost, after they're home for a season, they could be like, we spend a whole season like with them home, and they're like, we have to go back. And then they're trying to find a way to beam back to Voyager and get back there.
Yeah, I did right as that happened, when it was like, oh, we can transport everyone home. Like, well, show's over. They can beam home. 6 episodes. That was a good run.
That would be now. Yeah, it'd be a limited series that would also come back for 5 more seasons. But
right, yeah.
I mean, that could easily be like, oh, this premise isn't working. The studio doesn't like it. Let's beam you home and we'll start over. But you can't beam Voyager home.
Right. Yeah.
Piece by piece.
Well, I guess this could be one of those episodes, and I decry this all the time of, the transport can solve everything. But I think this one is more interesting. Like, okay, we're using it for the messages and all that stuff. I thought that I do like that idea. It's not necessarily a panacea, but it is. It was an interesting. It adds another level and then of exploration within the show and within the characters and all that stuff. So I did like that. And then I guess at some point, do they test the transporter as far as a person? Then
so they test their cylinder, which the Romulan.
Oh, that's what it was. That's right.
And then they test with the Romulan beaming to them because he won't let them beam.
Which is a huge, like, it's like, I'll do it. Like, what?
Yeah.
What? Does he have any other crew that we don't see? Like,
yeah, right. Like, that's a lot. That's
now I understand my note.
His version of Ensign Harry Kim.
What was that cylinder thing they sent?
Had organic matter and stuff in it. It was just to make sure that the transport can handle beaming like organic material and stuff without losing its integrity or what it was. So it must have some like samples in it that you're.
It looked like a futuristic oversized tumbler or whatever. I can't. Whatever the hot.
The Stanley Cups.
That's it. That's where I was going. Yes, sir. Yep, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Rest apparently has an eidetic memory, which makes absolute sense for a species that only lives 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, otherwise, how do you like have adult intelligence at age 2? Yeah. I would imagine her whole species has that, which is good for becoming a doctor. But until she says like, "Oh, we're going home," the fact that she's like, "When we get back, I want to go to medical school," I'm like, I've got some bad news. You're only supposed to live another 7 years. This is supposed to take 70 years. I don't think you're going to make it back home. But again, like, why is she talking about like we are going home when it's not her home?
Yeah. It's like the sports thing, I guess. We're winning. Like, you're not doing anything. You're sitting on the couch.
Yeah, but I mean, you're absolutely right. But I guess I would get it more if it's a sports team you've been a fan of for decades versus a ship you've traveled with for a month.
Yeah.
Well, that's a long part of her history already. So
that's true because she only lives to nine years.
That's
so
right,
that's the equivalent of like a year or two. For
us,
at least. But when the Romulan says that the tech is far advanced, I felt that was our first clue about the time travel thing. Where he's like, "Oh, our spies must be. We didn't know you'd have anything this advanced." That knowing what the twist was coming, I was like, "Oh, that's a clue." It wasn't that far from the end, but it was still a clue they put in earlier. Like, "Oh, this is what's happening."
I see. I forgot that was a thing. So, so when he said that, I'm like, "Yeah, well, it's an intrepid class, baby."
It made me think that he was even further back in time, like around the era that Balance of Terror talks about, that it's been 100 years. Well, I guess it would have been 200 years before, but in
you guys know Jonathan
like,
Archer? Why aren't you wearing his uniform?
So we haven't seen a Romulan. Yeah. So I thought we were going to get into that, but
yeah, he talks about if the transport test works, I'm going to then call a troop ship to come so you can transport to them. They've already established there's less than 48 hours until the wormhole collapses. And you're going to wait till the tests are over to call a ship to come to you? Are you like right near a Romulan base? Because otherwise, I don't understand how that's going to work.
Yeah, I thought that same thing when Janeway was like, "All right, tell everyone to record their messages." Like, you should have done that like from the start, or just in case, like, what if this happens again or sooner? Like, have those ready to go.
I guess maybe it's the opposite of that Anchorman bit. So, when Ron Burgundy tries to assemble the news team, he's like, "News team, assemble!" And turns out they're right there, even though he sent out the message. In this instance, I guess it's the opposite, where he's not even worried because he knows they're right there, but he's just not. But he keeps talking about being alone.
Yeah.
Maybe it is the same joke, but anyway. But yeah, why not? Yeah.
So Tuvok finds out the reason, and when he asks the Romulan to name the year, he says, "From your calendar, it's this date." I'm like, that's not the Vulcan calendar. Why? He should definitely be making clear he's addressing Janeway and not Tuvok in that moment. Because the Vulcan calendar, it's a totally different year. They're like the Jewish calendar, right? Their calendar goes back a lot further than ours.
Right. The Starfleet calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim wants to beam back anyway, even though it's 20 years in the past. And like, you'd be 2 years older, 4 years older, whatever.
Yeah.
I think obviously with the timeline issue, you can't do that. But yeah, Kim was very short-sighted with his reaction of, let's just beam back and then we'll figure out. I guess he was probably thinking, beam us back and then we'll just slingshot around the sun like they do in the original movies, and that'll work. The Romulan, I can't read my writing there, offers to warn them not to go.
Yeah, so he had offered, like, I can make it so that you guys never leave on this mission in the first place.
Oh yeah. And Chakotay says no without even looking at Janeway.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who are you to just refuse this offer without the captain say so?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
temporal
I agree.
meddling.
You shouldn't mess up the timeline.
Yeah, who would ever go back in time and undo a whole thing? That's crazy.
You can name 12 television shows. But I think Chakotay just jumps in because it's like, oh, you're going to prevent Voyager, then me and my Maquis are left all by ourselves. So I got to jump in and say no. But then there's the other argument, like they did save the Okapa from the Kazon to a certain extent. So yeah, you don't want to erase that.
And also, good job, Tuvok, for figuring it out.
Yes.
And waiting to dramatically announce it.
Yeah.
No, I thought I like that a lot.
I feel like he had a little bit more screen time this episode, so that's good.
Slightly. I still don't get how he was like 4th on the call sheet, because I think he's 9th in development so far.
Yeah.
But well. Gives the Romulan gives his name and says they want to meet when they get home, but he'll be an old man. Vulcans and Romulans live 200 years, and he doesn't look very old. See, if they take 70 years to get home, he might not be all that old yet.
Yeah.
Again, like people, I do feel like the writers of this episode, with that and the map stuff and years, they just weren't worried about being careful or accurate to the canon. This was story by Hilary Bader, who has 19 writing credits, the last one being she wrote 30 episodes of a show called Gotham Girls from 2000 to 2002. Best known as a writer on Batman Beyond, The New Batman Adventures, Superman the Animated Series, and 3 episodes of The Next Generation. She has writing credits for The Lost in Season 4, Hero Worship in Season 5, and Dark Page in Season 7, none of which were like super memorable. She also did Battle Lines in DS9 Season 1, Rules of Acquisition in DS9 Season 2, and Meridian and Explorers in Season 3, which we haven't seen Explorers yet. But again, those other 3, not super memorable. This is her only Voyager. And in fact, Next Gen's her first writing credit, then Lois and Clark, then Voyager and DS9. So, and then she did write for the video games Star Trek Klingon and Star Trek Borg, which are like their filmed video games playing on the computer. So I don't know. It just doesn't, I don't know why they kept using her, but because it doesn't seem like she had like really hit on the memorable stuff. But then it was Teleplay by Jerry Taylor and Bill Dial. We've talked about Jerry Taylor a lot, but Bill Dial's mostly a producer, it looks like, on things like Sliders and the new WKRP in Cincinnati and Simon & Simon back in the 80s. He's best known for being a producer at Earth Force and Legman. And he, as far as writing goes, besides this episode of Voyager, wrote 2 DS9s in Season 2, The Alternate and Tribunal, which were not bad, but still, it's like, he doesn't have a ton of credits, and it just seemed like, I don't know. Directed by one of our normal one, Rich Colby. I just thought the writing was a little weak, I guess was my point.
Gotcha.
Tuvok then reveals the Romulan died 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So just like he didn't warn Voyager not to leave, they didn't warn him that you're going to die. It is kind of heartbreaking. It is kind of heartbreaking, the ambiguity you leave it to. Like, maybe your messages got home, maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
I wrote down bummer ending, and which doesn't mean a bad ending, but also bummer ending. But you know what? Keep your chin up.
No.
We're gonna, and I guess you have to.
Yeah.
This is not something I wrote down. I have a couple more notes, but Shane, as our resident time travel lover, do you feel like you could do time travel every week, or at some point do you feel like it's getting diluted? Because like I didn't like the 4 or 5 we had in TOS. I was like, enough already. To the point that I used to joke about the slingshot around the sun, and now Voyage Home, I was like, all right, I'm still gonna accept it. This is the end of the galaxy, kind of a thing. But anyway, I was just curious where you would land on that.
Yeah, I think using it sparingly is good, because otherwise you get to a point where it's like, well, I'm not worried about any, like, I'm not worried about any consequences because you could just time travel it away.
Right.
Or like so far each one has come up in a anomalous way, which is kind of, they're not doing it on purpose. But yeah, too many more, and it might be like, let's re-examine because I like it. But yeah, if every week was, oh, there's some time phenomena, like, okay, there's other stuff in space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then it's the Austin Powers, the second Austin Powers, where he just keeps going back 10 minutes, and 5 minutes, 12
Right.
minutes, however many minutes. Which I think also that's another thing. Doing it once or twice, it's a funny bit, and then you got to find another variation on that. But I guess they did in Galaxy Quest too, which makes sense because it's a Star Trek movie. So, but
essentially
they did the same thing. Yeah. My alternate episode, and this could go a number of ways, was just that however they got the messages delivered, somewhere along the way in this intra-quadrant intra-galaxy communication, those messages are gonna get messed up. Somebody's gonna, there's gonna be some
playing a game of telephone.
Messages. Yeah, the Romulans are either gonna screw them up or try and reinterpret them, or if they're damaged in some way, or as they essentially say, or they get to them 10 years in the past or 10 years in the future or whatever, that kind of thing. My other one was our Romulan captain was played by Vaughn Armstrong, who also has a ton of credits.
Best known for 18 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, I think he's played like 12 different Trek characters. I think he might be the
Fire and Present Danger, The Net, The Philadelphia Experiment. Yeah, he has 100 credits, but like a ton of Star Trek.
Yep,
That's a major part of his career.
He, unlike Mr. Virtue, does have a Seinfeld credit. He played Lieutenant Coleman on the 2-part season 4 opener of The Trip when Jerry and George go to LA. Jerry's going to be on the Tonight Show, and they go to look for Kramer, who there's also the Smog Strangler out there, and they think Kramer might be the Smog Strangler. Also in that episode, another Star Trek legend, Clint Howard from the Corbomite Maneuver, who is the Smog Strangler. And Jerry and George inadvertently help him escape. Kill again, I guess. So.
Yeah, this actor, like I say, he plays 18 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, all the same character. But he will be in like 5 episodes of Voyager as 5 different characters. And we've already seen him in 1 episode DS9 as a Cardassian, although he will be in a couple episodes of season 7 as well.
He was in Quantum Leap with Scott Bakula as well. So.
Yep, and he was in Star Trek The Experience, The Klingon Encounter, which was the original Star Trek The Experience in Las Vegas, so I must have seen him in that. And of course he did 1 episode of Home Improvement with our good buddy Tim Allen that we were talking about earlier. A couple episodes of Seinfeld as well.
Yeah, The Trip.
Yeah. And then he was in 1 episode of Next Gen as Commander Chorus in Heart of Glory in season 1. So yeah, a lot of credits, a lot of good credits. I liked when all this was done, Janeway gave herself a moment to like process it. It wasn't a long moment, and it wasn't like, it was just, okay, what's next? But she gave herself a minute before that, and that was good. It humanizes her. It gives the rest of the crew permission to do the same. I liked it. I also liked the attitude change towards the Doctor almost immediately by Lieutenant Dipwad, aka Lieutenant Baxter. Yeah. And then, just he wants a name. I do feel like that's probably a missed opportunity for the show, but his name. We'll see how that goes for him. Yeah, still that's nice to get what he wants, because that's important to know.
Yeah.
Any other notes before we rank?
I had one note when he was when the Romulan captain was talking to Janeway in her pajamas at the end. He was like, "All right, good night." It's like, well, now how did he know that she was sleeping? Did Harry Kim tell him, or like?
It was video this whole time.
Yeah, just like how you were saying about the with the quadrants and stuff. I'm like, how does everyone just know that? Oh, it's Starfleet, so they're on a 24-hour like time thing. Like how?
All of the communications had timestamps on them.
Yeah, but even then, like how do you know that? How do you know what shift she's working?
She's the captain. She works alpha shift.
What does even that mean?
Yep.
I mean, you're not wrong, Shane. I'm just saying, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. The Romulans with their spy stuff and their intelligence work.
Oh, yeah, they know.
Would probably know essentially when a captain would be on duty, and if he's looking at the timestamp.
She sounded sleepy, so
there you go. He knew that. Good call. That's even better.
Yeah, like you said.
Okay, let's get to the ranking then. Who are you having a drink with in Eye of the Needle?
Our guy, and I wrote his name down, but it's not Telecromor.
The Romulan Telecromor.
Yeah, he's been through some stuff, and yeah, I feel like he and he's closer to my time. So if I can just live another
only slightly
327 years, well,
I also chose him. I liked him. I thought he was as helpful as he could be under the circumstances, and I like the way. I think a lot of times the Romulans we see, and we're going to see some in DS9 next week, are a little bit paint by number, stereotype, whatever. And this was a fully fleshed out 3-dimensional character. I liked that a lot about him.
Nice.
Yeah, like the Romulans sometimes are just like, well, they're just Klingons without the makeup, bad haircuts, and we don't talk about honor. But when they're interesting, I think that's when the other stuff's going on. Then I think they're interesting, and then so.
Yeah.
I picked B'Elanna because she sounds like she needed a drink. It's like she probably doesn't like to talk about stuff like that. So, she did with Harry Kim, and probably just afterwards, I don't want to remember talking about that. Just go have a drink.
That's a good one.
Yeah, could be. Who did you find annoying in this episode?
I was with our guy Telek, but then I felt like he came around, and I know our guy Baxter does, but he's probably still a jerk in other parts of his life with Mr. Baxter.
Yeah, Baxter. Lieutenant Dipwad, yeah.
See, I said I didn't even consider Baxter. I guess I just took his attitude for granted. I put, and I know it's not his fault, but I put Tuvok because he just waits till it's like everybody's got their up piece from 20 years ago because he hadn't confirmed it yet, so I can't tell him. He's just the total downer of first of all, then also he died 4 years ago. It's not his fault, but he was the downer in this episode. He was the Debbie Downer in his scenes. So I picked Tuvok for that reason. I did not miss Neelix in this episode. If you noticed, he's credit only. Did I miss him?
On that note, and while we're talking about Jimmy's favorite time travel episode of Star Trek, Tomorrow is Yesterday. I'm being facetious, but remember in that episode, Spock's like, well, this guy never did anything noteworthy, so we don't have to send him back. He's stuck with us. And then he's like, later he's like, actually he has this son that does this thing and this thing, so we do need to send him back. Do you think Spock could have made that up just so the guy could go home? Two, could Tuvok, did he have to tell everyone, oh, by the way, this guy dies? Could he have made up I know Vulcans don't lie, but they do exaggerate.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was just that. Like, he doesn't even try to make him feel better. He's just the wet blanket that comes out on top of him.
He could have waited and just told Janeway in private, but he said it in front of enough people that it's gonna get out.
The whole crew's gonna know by dinner time.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, I'm not like Spock. I do my research thoroughly, and you're gonna know. I'm not gonna remember later or find something later.
That was inspiring to you this week.
Because she saw a problem, she went there, she solved it, made change. Yes.
Not a bad choice. I chose our Romulan friend for this as well, because just the way he did bend over backwards to try to help them, and it's like, these are the enemy that we usually are antagonistic against, and he came over to their side so quickly, and I do think more likely than not somebody else will deliver those messages. I've always thought that about this episode. I can't remember if it's ever confirmed or not that they got them, but I think more likely than not he made sure.
I picked Harry Kim because I mean he did. I mean, B'Elanna helped a lot, but like he did the majority of the communication work at the start. So he's the one who found the wormhole. Like he,
the Harry Kim wormhole.
Yeah, like that's
he's the inciting incident.
Like that's and he was gung ho for it. So like
the Harry Kim wormhole that totally failed them and ruined their day. It's not any more fair to blame him than it is to blame Tuvok, as I've been doing. So ranking the episode, let's start high for this one. I think better or worse than The Cloud, which was the most recent episode.
Probably that's tough. That's a tough one.
Both science-y,
Yeah.
both thinkers, both
Yeah.
have some good characterization in them.
Mhm.
I think I want to go above.
Yeah, I'd say above two, just because there was development, it wasn't anything dangerous, it was very sciencey, a little bit time travel, that helps for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I made unanimous. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes it
You could argue me the other way too, but I think I'm cool.
Hey, by the way, Photon Torpedo Watch still at 37.
Yep. Thank you.
Good
Thank
update.
you. We're counting on you to keep track of that. Because I'm not going to, but I am curious. I'm interested. So I appreciate you doing it. Yeah, that makes it number 1 of 6 so far. I still don't think it's like one of the best episodes of the series by any means, but I do think that number 2 right now is the most recent episode, The Cloud. I think this show is starting to find its stride here in terms of who the characters are and stuff. We're not to heights yet, but we're the first couple. We had some rough stuff with Phage and time and again, and I think it's getting there. So, anyway, next week, Deep Space Nine episode Visionary. Well, a Romulans again. Although this did air the following week, so last week's DS9 aired the same week as this. Visionary aired the following week, just for the reference. Visionary. While a Romulan delegation tries to get information about the Dominion, O'Brien gets visions of unpleasant things that are about to happen in the future. They're not visions, he's time jumping. Anyway, until then, live long.
Like it's 2351 and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?